Okay, so subject is fluid mechanics 2. As I mentioned, the slides have been provided to you. So same uh, pattern will continue, that I will try to provide the slides of the lecture before, maybe at the end of week or at the weekend. And you should or you are advised to go through those slides before coming to the lecture, so that you can understand better, and you can note the questions if you will have any. And later, after the lecture, you will be given time to ask the questions, so there will be question answer session for that. And the recording will also be made available to you later uh, for every lecture. Before I start with the introduction to the subject, one thing I wanted to convey, that I just checked the LMS registration of your section. So just I think 3 or 4 students have been registered. So try to complete your registration at the earliest, so that I can mark the attendance directly on LMS. So I expect you from you that by next week all of you will get registered, those who want to take this subject. So just do it at your priority, please, so that attendance is marked directly, and later we have the list of the attendance available when this subject finishes, our course is completed. So as you are well aware that the subject is fluid mechanics 2, and already you have taken FM1 course, and obviously it is prerequisite for this course. Those who have not cleared FM1 course, they will not be able to register FM2 or fluid mechanics 2. So you know, in FM1 course you discussed various properties of the fluid, like density, specific weight, specific gravity, and some other properties. You have studied already the pressure acting on different surfaces, water pressure acting on that in case of stationary water, and you have studied buoyancy and the conditions of stability. You have studied how to measure the pressure or calculate the pressure in pipelines. You have studied the open channels, and how to find the discharge in through various devices. So different topics you studied there. So FM2 is a bit, you can say, won't say it is continuation of that. You have slightly different topics over here, but some repetition will also be there, or some concept will also be carried from the FM1 course. So that's why it is kept as prerequisite for this course. Its course code is CE 331, and contact hours are 3. So we'll have 3 hour contact each week, interaction each week. So in this time around, if you see in the timetable, so these 3 hours have been kept combinedly. Otherwise, they are normally 2 hour lecture and 1 hour lecture. They are separated in this way. But we have 3 hour lecture uh, in one go. So obviously, we have to utilize this time more efficiently, and in a way that you learn something, you get the idea of different topics over here, and you have been given uh, uh, sufficient time to ask your questions, to cover your queries. Credit is 3 hours, three that you know already. Those who are aware of CGPA calculation, or they are more concerned about that, so they are well aware that what is the importance of 3 credit. And obviously there is a lab of FM2. So in during your lab class, you will learn its contact hours and the credit hours and other things. So as the name indicates, fluid mechanics. So what are fluids and what is fluid mechanics? So fluids are the substances which are capable of flowing. So whenever they are in a situation where they can flow, so they will. which confirm the shape of containing vessels. So that is also one property of the fluid. If you put in some vessel, so they will make the shape of that vessel. And they are at rest, and when they are at rest, they cannot sustain tangential or shear forces. So whenever the fluids are not moving or they are at rest, there are no shear forces developed, there are no shear stresses developed, there are no tangential, we also call them, stresses developed. And when they are moving, so depending on the type of the fluid, whether they are viscous or slightly viscous or non-viscous, so there will be the shearing stresses developed between the consecutive moving layers of the fluid on one another. So this is how fluids can be defined. So we have the gases, we have the liquids mainly covering under this, mainly covered under these fluids. Then fluid mechanics, uh, mechanics is a branch of science dealing with the state of any object, whether at rest or in motion. So fluid mechanics dealing with the response of the fluids either at rest or in motion. When the fluids are at rest, how they respond in terms of the forces they apply on certain surfaces, and in terms of the other properties that can change with the change in pressure or other things. And when they are in motion, how they respond, how their forces and energies they are calculated, and they are considered for various purposes. So this is about the fluid mechanics. It's a very broad or vast field, and it has you can say significant applications not only in civil engineering but also in other fields like mechanical engineers. They also study this, and they have the practical utilization of these concepts. So it's a very broad subject, this fluid mechanics, and you will see in the course outline as well that you have to cover different nature subjects. Courses in this are the course chapters in this. As far as the textbooks are concerned, the reference books are concerned, so as far as my part is concerned, I will let you know later what I have to cover. And the other teacher with me will be Engineer Visa. So she will obviously introduce herself during the lab classes and also during the lectures. So one half of the course will be covered by me, and other half will be covered by Engineer Visa. So as far as my course is concerned, so I will be taking most of the contents from the first book, that is Fluid Mechanics with Engineering Application by Dougherty, and it's a metric edition you should get. The latest one is preferable. So all of you should have this book, preferably, and it is very useful book, especially relating to the fluid mechanics and hydraulics. It will also help you in hydraulics in your next semester course. So if you will get this, we also have to do some numericals from different chapters. So that's why we need to have this book with you so that you can go through the solved examples given, and accordingly you can do the numericals that will be assigned to you, and that will be done also in the class. For the other half, which will be taught by Engineer Visa, so she will be uh, having the material of the lectures from Fluid Mechanics by Douglas, Fluid Mechanics by it's volume 1 and 2, and by Lewitt. Now, as far as the marks distribution is concerned, you already know it. The total marks of the subject are 200, 100 for the theory part and 100 for the lab subject. That is fluid mechanics to lab. So as far as the theory part is concerned, so these 100 marks, they are divided into quiz 1 of 10 mark. There will be midterm of 30 mark. Hopefully, if the conditions they improve, and obviously you know it that university have the intentions to take the on-campus exam. So hopefully, if the condition improves, we will have the midterm on time. Otherwise, you may have one exam later as a comprehensive exam. Anyhow, so typically we have the quiz 1, midterm, quiz 2, end term, and the class participation, which will include the assignments which will be given to you, and also your class attendance, etc. Now, coming to the course contents that we have to cover in this subject. So, the first 4 topics will be covered by me, and out of them, few topics will be before the mids and few will be after the mids. So the course first title is topic is steady uniform flow of incompressible fluids through circular pipes. These are also the chapters of Doherty book. Like the first topic is chapter number it is chapter number 8 of Doherty book. So mostly the contents will be from that chapter. Steady uniform flow of incompressible fluids through circular pipes. So we will discuss this topic after the mids because it involves it is more, you can say, conceptual. So I want that if hopefully on campus classes they start, so that will benefit you more. Anyhow, then we have the forces on immersed bodies. That's and again a chapter of the Doherty book is chapter number 10, dealing with the forces on immersed bodies. Immersed bodies mean those objects or bodies which are fully submerged in a fluid, like aeroplane movement in air. That is one example of it. Similarly, you can have other examples of the same nature. Then we have the dimension analysis. It's chapter number 7. Part of it, chapter number 7, we'll discuss in this course. You will be taught different methods of dimension analysis and their benefits, and then we'll do the dimension analysis also to make the equations to describe certain flow phenomena. Then we have the fluid kinematics or basic hydrodynamics that will start with today. Is the first topic that we'll cover. So the topic number 2 and 4 that will be covered before mids, and 1 and 3 will be covered after mids. And the other part, if you see impact of jet, impulse and reaction turbine, centrifugal pump, reciprocating pump, so that is covered by engineer Weiser. Now coming to the CLOs of this theory course FM2, as you already know and familiar that we have shifted from conventional system to OBE system, outcome based education, and as a part of that system, every subject should be having well defined class learning or course learning outcomes. And what are those outcomes? Those are the one which a student should have or should have the ability to cover and to attain after the completion of the course. So after completing the theory course of fluid mechanics 2, students will be able to, number 1, the first CLO is analyze laminar and turbulent flow regimes in circular pipes. So this the first topic in the course that is steady uniform flow of incompressible fluids through circular pipe, that will that is relating to CLO1. So after covering that course, you should be able to analyze laminar and turbulent flow regimes in circular pipes, and it is problem analysis PLO, PLO2, and its cognitive level will be C4. C4 level, it's a quite considerable level of achievement if you if you achieve it, or if you you can say try to achieve this. Then we have the second CLO for this course is to apply dimension analysis techniques for development of equations in functional form. So the topic number 3, dimensional analysis, that will lead to this CLO2, or that will contribute to the achievement of CLO2. So it is relating to PLO3, that is design and development of solution, because you will make equations over here and you will develop the solution for different fluid problems or fluid phenomena. And it is its level is C3, so you will achieve up to this C3 level of this cognitive domain. Then the third one is to classify various types of flows considering fluid elements in motion. So the topics that we'll cover before mid, that is forces on immersed bodies, and 4 is flow kinematics or basic hydrodynamics. This basic hydrodynamics is also chapter number 5 of Doherty book. So mostly contents will be taken from that chapter number 5 of fluid mechanics with engineering applications by Doherty and Franzoni. So this the topics that we'll cover before mids, so they will contribute to the achievement of CLO3. So it's cognitive, it's relating to engineering knowledge, and its cognitive level is C4. And then we have the other topics that will be covered by engineer Vaiza. So that is impact of jet, impulse and reaction turbines, centrifugal pump, reciprocating pumps. So that will be contributing to CLO4 to evaluate the design of various types of turbines and pumps using impulse momentum principle. So this CLO4 is one which will come from one half of this course work. This course of FM2. It's relating to PLO4, that is investigation, and its cognitive level is C5, quite high cognitive level. This is the tentative lecture delivery plan for this subject. So as I mentioned, that I will starting with the lectures, and engineer Vaiza will be taking care of the lab classes for the first 4 weeks, and then it will be reversed. So for all the sections in the first 4 weeks, the theory lecture will be taken by me. So I'll be, as I mentioned, covering the topics basic hydrodynamics and forces on immersed bodies before mid. And then from 5th week onward, engineer Vaiza will take over the theory classes, and she will cover impact of jet topic. And then they will midterm exam, hopefully if the conditions they prevail, they become better and they allow. Then we have later after the mids, again I will take care of the theory classes for all sections and cover the remaining part of the course that I had to cover. And then in the later part of this semester, from week 14 onward, engineer Vaiza will be taking care of the theory classes, and I will be taking care of the lab classes. So this is how this course will go in this semester, this course of fluid mechanics, including the theory and the labs. Now, coming to the up till now, if anybody having any query, any question, please ask. It's week 1, it's lecture 1 and week 1. Yes, anybody having any query, any question relating to introduction part before I continue? Yes.
No question.
Okay, so let's continue and let's start with our first topic, that is elementary hydrodynamics. It's relating to CLO3, and it's relating to PLO1, that is engineering knowledge. Now, first of all, relating to the introduction of this topic, the study of fluid mechanics purely based on mathematics, considering the elements of fluid in motion, is known as the hydrodynamics. So if you consider mathematical equations are just using the mathematical equations, if you define various flow phenomena, flow types, etc., like rotational flow, irrotational flow, continuity equation in two and three-dimensional flow, similarly flow lines, equipotential lines. So with the help of mathematics, if you define these things, so it is called as the hydrodynamics. Now, according to dimension of flow, flow can be classified as, so you have already discussed previously in your previous course, FM1 course, about the types of flow, that is steady flow, unsteady flow. We have the uniform flow, non-uniform flow. We have the laminar flow, turbulent flow. So another way, another classification of the flow based on the dimensions, that is called as the either one-dimensional flow, two-dimensional flow, or three-dimensional flow, depending on the dimensions along with the variation of the flow or the variation of velocity is to be determined. So let us see what is one-dimensional flow, two-dimensional flow, or three-dimensional flow. So in one-dimensional flow, all the streamlines are parallel to each other. So there is only one velocity vector which is in the direction of flow. So in other words, in one-dimensional flow, we take uh, the variation of velocity with respect to one dimension. Normally, it is along the direction of flow. So remember this practically. If you talk about the reality or in real terms, no flow is one dimensional. If you talk about the flow in a channel, if you talk about the flow in a pipeline, or flow over a weir or spillway, or over a notch, so whatever you take, so in reality, velocity of flow, it will change along the direction of flow, it will change along the width of channel or along the diameter of pipe, and it will change along the other axis as well. So in reality, all the flows are the three-dimensional flows, but obviously three-dimensional flows are more complex to analyze, and that's why wherever the situations are allow us, and wherever we can simplify our you can say flow type in from three-dimensional to one-dimensional or two-dimensional to one-dimensional, so that is always preferable. So when one-dimensional flow is the simplest type of flow in which flow velocity or velocity vector is in one direction, that direction of flow of the fluid. So in this case, only one dimension is considered to analyze the flow. And like flow in a pipeline, flow in a uniform cross-section area channel. So these are all the one-dimensional flow in which the flow lines or streamlines, they are parallel to each other. Then on the other hand, in two-dimensional flow, the streamlines are not parallel to each other in a plane, but they are identical in parallel planes. So there are two velocity components in x and y direction. So if you need two dimensions to define a flow, the velocity of flow, that is x and y direction, that is called as two-dimensional flow. So in this case, the flow lines or the streamlines, they will not be parallel. They will be curvilinear, or they will be in curvature. But if you take each streamline separately, so they will look identical in parallel planes. So if you make if you separate each streamline and separate its plane, so if and then compare the streamlines in different planes, so they will be looking identical. But if you combine them, so they will not be parallel to each other. like the flow of fluid in a converging pipe, converging channel or diverging channel, or the flow fluid over a weir or spillway. So in that case, the flow lines will be curved. Flow in a at a pipe entrance or flow in at the channel entrance, you can say, that will also be having the flow lines in curvature. So that can be the examples of the two-dimensional flow wherever the velocity is varying along x-axis and also along the y-axis, and we need two dimensions to completely define the flow uh, field or to completely define the flow phenomena. Then the three-dimensional flow is the one in which streamlines, they are neither parallel to each other in a plane nor identical in parallel planes. So there are three velocity components, that is in x, y, and z direction. So it is the type of flow in which we have the three dimensions x, y, and z to define completely the flow phenomena. Or in other words, velocity is varying in x, y, and z direction. So as I mentioned, in reality, all the type of flows, whether the flow in a pipe or channel, under different circumstances, flow or weir or spillway, so they are actually three-dimensional flow. Although in simple cases, the velocity variation in other direction is very, you can say, minimum or negligible. So that's why we only take one dimension to simplify and define the flow phenomena or flow field. Like flow in a channel or river. So in that case, if you draw the velocity diagram, so velocity will be varying along the channel length or along the flow direction. If you draw the velocity profile along the width of the channel, so again you will see near the banks velocity is lesser and near the central portion velocity is more. Similarly, if you draw the velocity profile along the channel depth, so you'll see near the bed of the channel velocity is lesser and near the top velocity is more. So it is shows that velocity in a channel varies along the flow direction, it varies along the depth, and it varies along the width. So that is a typical example of three-dimensional flow. Similarly, there are some other examples as well where we have the three-dimensional flow. And remember this, it is the most complex type of the flow to analyze. And for this special equation, numerical models are made. And also nowadays we are available with the computer softwares or models which can analyze the three-dimensional flow. But still, a lot of work has to be done in this field. Up to one or two-dimensional flow, the considerable work has already been done, and we have the reliable solutions available to deal with these type of flow. But in three-dimensional flow, still a lot of work is being done to make it more reliable, because it is very complex to analyze such type of the flows. We always prefer and try to uh, uh, convert three-dimensional flow to two-dimensional, to simplify to that, or two-dimensional to one-dimensional flow, or even three-dimensional flow to one-dimensional flow in a simplified form wherever we can do it, and wherever the changes in the other dimensions are very small or negligible. So these are about the types of flow based on the dimensions and based on the directions in which the velocity variation has to be taken. If the velocity is variation is only in one direction mainly, that is a one-dimensional flow. It is, if it is varying in two directions, x and y, like I mentioned, if a water is entering into a pipe, or leaving a channel, or entering a channel, or it is having enlargement or convergence in a channel, so then the velocity variation will be in two directions. Similarly, if the velocity variation or velocity has three components to define completely the flow phenomena in x, y, and z direction, like that is along the channel flow, fluid flow direction, along the depth, and along the width. So this is a three-dimensional flow. Now coming to the very important topic under this basic hydrodynamics, that is differential equation of continuity. So up till now, you know continuity equation A1 V1 is equal to A2 V2. It is simplest form, you can say. So that is one-dimensional continuity equation in its simplest form. But over here you will learn the differential form of the equation in the form of differential variables, partial difference equation, you can say, uh, in three-dimensional and two-dimensional form. So let us first of all consider this diagram for this. This diagram is available in chapter number 5 of Doherty. It's page number 129, figure 5.1. So this diagram shows a three-dimensional element of the fluid, which is called as parallelepiped. Two-dimensional is square and three-dimensional is parallelepiped. So this is the three-dimensional element of the fluid, which has been considered having dimensions delta x in x direction, delta y in y direction, and delta z in z direction. So we have three mutually perpendicular axes, x, y, and z, as shown in this diagram, and also the velocity components along these axes. Along x-axis we have u as the velocity component, and along y-axis we have v velocity component, and along z-axis we have w as the velocity component. Now this is the face of the element through which the mass flow rate is entering. So rho u, it is actually density times the velocity, and I will discuss it later that what does it indicate. It actually indicates that how much mass flow rate is entering from this face and along x-axis, and how much mass flow rate is leaving x-axis at the other end of this element. So mass flow rate which is entering, that is rho u into the area normal to this flow, and how much is leaving, that is rho u, this one, plus partial rho u or partial x into delta x, that is the rate of change, change of this change in mass flow rate with respect to the distance along the x-axis. So this is the mass flow rate which is leaving, or which is at the outer face along x-axis. So now the same thing is mentioned over here, considering the figure which shows three coordinate axes, mutually perpendicular axes x, y, and z, which are mutually perpendicular and fixed in space. Let the velocity components in these directions be u, v, and w. U along x-axis, v along y-axis, and w along z-axis, respectively. Consider differential element of the fluid, which is parallelepiped. This is three-dimensional element, as shown in this figure, this one. This is a differential, very small element of the fluid which has been considered, having sides delta x, delta y, and delta z. So these are the sides of this three-dimensional element of the fluid. Now, the rate of mass flow in x direction entering through left hand face. So this is the left hand face. This one, this is the left hand face along x-axis, and this is the right hand face along x-axis. So the mass flow rate which is entering this, what is mass flow rate? It is rho into q. You know it, q is the volume flow rate, and we can convert into mass flow rate also. So mass flow rate is rho into q. So rho into q is actually the mass flow rate which is entering from left hand face along the x direction. So q is, rho is density, q is velocity into the area normal to flow. So that's why it is rho into u, which is velocity along x-axis, and delta y into delta z, it is the area of this left hand face. So if you see the diagram, what is the mass flow rate entering from left hand face along x-axis? That is rho into u into the area normal to this movement of the fluid. So what is this area? That is delta y into delta z. So delta y into delta z is the area of this face, left hand face. So this is rho into q, and q is area into velocity. So that's why rho u into delta y into delta z. This is the mass flow rate entering the left hand face in x direction. Now the rate of mass flow in x direction leaving through right hand face. So this is the right hand face of the fluid, this element, three-dimensional element along the x-axis. So how much is the mass flow rate which is leaving this? This is the mass flow rate entering plus the rate of change of the mass flow rate along the distance x, the delta x. So how much is the mass flow rate which is leaving the right hand face along the x direction? This is rho u plus partial rho u or partial x into delta x. So this is overall the change of change in this factor rho u over the distance delta x. And this is the again area of this face, which is normal to the direction of flow of the fluid. So again, the area of the right hand face is delta y into delta z. So this is how we can write the mass flow rate entering along x-axis from left hand face and mass flow rate which is leaving the right hand face along the x direction. Now next is the net rate of flow, mass rate of flow in x direction. So we have the mass flow rate entering along x direction and we have the mass flow rate leaving along the x direction. So net will be mass flow rate entering minus mass flow rate leaving along the x direction. So net mass rate of flow will be inflow, you can say, minus outflow. So rho u delta y to delta z minus, so you can multiply this rho u with delta y delta z. So this will be minus rho u delta y delta z. And again you can multiply this delta y into delta z with this term, second term in the bracket, that is minus partial rho u partial x into delta x into delta y into delta z. So as you can see, this term, the first two term rho u delta y into delta z and this one rho u delta y, they will be cancelled. So the net mass flow rate along x direction will be partial rho u or partial x into delta x into delta y into delta z. So this is equation number 3, which is the net mass flow rate in x direction. Now on the same lines, we can write the equation for net mass flow rate in y direction. The only thing that will vary is the change is the velocity component in x direction is u, and instead of that in y direction it will be v. And now the variation of the velocity component along y direction is with respect to partial y instead of partial x. Now looking at equation number 3, which is the net mass flow rate of the fluid in x direction, partial rho u is the velocity component along x direction and partial x is the distance along x direction. This is the volume of the element that is common for all other net mass flow rates in other directions. Now net mass flow rate in y direction, looking at equation number 3, can be written as minus partial rho v. So v is the velocity component in y direction over partial y instead of partial x. The rest of the thing will be same, delta x into delta y into delta z. This is equation number 4. Similarly, the net mass flow rate in z direction can also be written on the same lines. So we can write minus partial rho W over partial Z into delta X into delta Y into delta Z. So W is the velocity component in Z direction, and delta Z is the distance along Z direction. So this is how we can write the, yes, any question? So anybody having any question? Okay, so this is how we can write the net mass flow rate equations in X, Y, and Z direction, which are given in equation 3, 4, and 5. Now, so this is for along different directions of the fluid element. So combinedly for the whole fluid element, three-dimensional fluid element, so the net mass flow rate in three mutually perpendicular directions. So if you combinedly want to write for all directions x, y, and z, so the net mass flow rate in three mutually perpendicular directions will be just the summation of the equation number 3, 4, and 5. So if you just sum the equation number 3, 4, and 5, so that will be the net mass flow rate in all three mutually perpendicular directions x, y, and z. So that is, this is delta x, delta y, delta z. That will be common. Multiply this volume of the element, you can say. So if you add these three equations, 3, 4, and 5, so you see delta x into delta y into delta z, this is a common term. So this will be taken out with the negative sign, and the remaining will be inside the brackets partial rho u over partial x plus partial rho v over partial y plus partial rho w over partial z. So this is equation number 6, that is the net mass flow rate in three mutually perpendicular direction x, y, and z. पहले हमने लहदा लिखा तीनों डायरेक्शन के लिए, फिर इसको कंबाइन कर लिया, तो ये तीनों डायरेक्शन पे कंबाइन in all three mutually perpendicular directions, the combined net mass flow rate is given in question number 6. Next is the rate of, now we also know that the rate of change of mass in the fluid element that can also be defined as partial rho over partial t into delta x, delta y into delta z. What is this? Anybody who can explain this, how it has come? Rate of change of mass in the fluid element. Yes. What is density? Density is mass over volume, is it?
Yes, sir.
So what is actually mass, that is density into volume? So actually it is partial m over partial t. Partial m over partial t mean rate of change of mass, flow rate, or mass of the fluid element. So what is m? M is rho into density into volume. So that's why it is mentioned that partial rho over partial t into the volume of the fluid. So remember this, in this topic, we are taking the incompressible fluid, the fluids which are having you can say same volume and density also. So further it will be simplified for both types of the fluids. Anyhow, so partial rho over partial t into this is basically the rate of change of mass of the fluid element. Now question number 6 is the net mass flow rate, or again you can say rate of mass flow for the fluid element in x, y, and z direction, and this equation number 7 is also the rate of change of mass or rate of mass flow for the fluid element. So it means that question number 6 and 7, their left hand side is same. One way to define the rate of mass flow or mass rate of flow is this equation number 6, and the other way to write it is equation number 7, which is again the net or rate of mass flow or rate of rate mass rate of flow for the fluid element. So comparing equation number 6 and 7, so we can write, so if you compare equation 6 and 7, so this delta x, delta y, delta z will be cancelled on both sides, because equation 6 has this, and also equation 7 has this delta x, delta y, delta z. So it will be cancelled. Now the remaining equation will be partial rho u or partial x plus partial rho v or partial y plus partial rho w or partial z is equal to minus partial rho over partial t. So this is equation number 8. Equation number 8 is a general equation of continuity for three-dimensional flow applicable to all types of fluid, whether they are compressible or incompressible, and all types of flows, whether they are steady or unsteady. Equation number 8 is a general equation of continuity in three-dimensional terms. So equation number 8 is three-dimensional equation, general equation of continuity in three-dimensional flow, which is applicable to compressible and incompressible fluids and to steady and unsteady flows. Now we can simplify it further to make it more convenient and to make it more, we can say, to the real-time situations where we mostly deal with the two-dimensional flow. So reducing equation number 8 for steady flow first. So for steady flow, we know that there is no change in the velocity of density of the fluid with respect to time. This is one aspect of the steady flow, that the density of the fluid remains unchanged with respect to change in time. So that is the steady flow. So for steady flow, the right hand side of the equation will be 0, because partial v or partial t is 0, no change in velocity density with respect to time. So we have this. Now putting this in equation number 8, so we get the equation number 9. So partial rho u or partial x plus partial rho v or partial y plus partial rho w or partial z is equal to 0. This is the equation number 9. That is the three-dimensional continuity equation for steady flow. Equation number 9 is three-dimensional continuity equation for steady flow. Now, another thing that we can consider is the incompressible fluid. As I mentioned that in this course, mostly we will be dealing with the incompressible fluids. So for incompressible fluids, the density must be same in x, y, and z direction. There is no change in the density of the fluid of incompressible for incompressible fluids. So for incompressible fluids, density should remain same in x, y, and z direction, mean no change in the density of the fluid. So putting this thing in equation number 9, what we can do, we can take this density factor out, because it is not be changing with x, y, and z. So we can write rho into partial u or partial x plus rho into partial v or partial y plus rho into partial w or partial z. So we can take the rho common, which is constant, and take on the other side it will be 0. So it will be eliminated from the equation if you take the rho constant. So taking the rho constant, density constant for incompressible fluids, this is a three-dimensional equation for steady incompressible fluids. Question number 10 is the three-dimensional continuity equation, 3D continuity equation for steady incompressible fluids. So we have reduced equation number 8, which was for all type of the fluids and flows, to a special situation which is for steady incompressible fluids or steady flow incompressible fluids, which is partial u or partial x plus partial v over partial y plus partial w over partial z is equal to 0. Now, for two-dimensional, please keep your mic off. Somebody has the mic open. Okay, so for two-dimensional flow or for two-dimensional continuity equation, one dimension will be eliminated, that is normally the z direction. So for two-dimensional continuity equation, we have partial u or partial x plus partial v or partial y is equal to 0. So this is the mathematical way to define two-dimensional flow, to define three-dimensional flow, and to define also if we have one dimension, so it will be only one, that is partial u or partial x, that's it. So in this way we can define mathematically one, two or three-dimensional flow, that is called as the hydrodynamics or elementary hydrodynamics. This is the scope of elementary hydrodynamics, to define various types of the flow phenomena, flow fields mathematically using the mathematical equations. Okay, so this is the equation, these two equations that we should specially keep in mind whenever you ask to check the flow field regarding the continuity. So you will be utilizing these two equations, equation number 10 and also equation number 11 it should be, or 10a you can say. Now let us use these equations and where it is to be used to check the continuity of the flow field. So flow field is actually the way to define or describe the velocity variation in the flow, that is the flow field. So it is actually the way to define flow phenomena, considering dimensions, variation of velocity in different dimensions. So it can be two-dimensional flow field or three-dimensional flow field, depending on the components of velocity which are given. So you are given with the following flow field, and by looking at the data, so can anybody tell me, is it the two-dimensional flow field or three-dimensional flow field? QB. Any guess? Any idea? So you are given three flow fields A, B, and C, describing the flow phenomena. So looking at these flow field, so can anybody tell me, are these the two-dimensional flow fields, or one-dimensional flow field, or three-dimensional flow field? Yes. क्यों भी किसी को समझ नहीं आ रही? Yes, anybody, roll number 56, आप बता सकती हैं अभी कि कौन सा फ्लो फील्ड है, ये वन डिमेंशनल है, टू डिमेंशनल है, थ्री डिमेंशनल है? क्यों भी नहीं समझ आ रही?
तो टू डिमेंशनल है।
क्यों टू डिमेंशनल है? किस बेस पे ये कह सकते हैं हम? Yes, anybody else?
इसमें दो पैरामीटर्स है।
So it is very clear, very simple, that if you see, there are two velocity components given and there are two dimensions involved, x and y. In all flow fields, there are two dimensions involved, x and y. If there is a third dimension involved, for example, v is 3x, x, y, z, so then it will be a three-dimensional flow field. So if two dimensions are involved, two components of velocity are involved, so this is a two-dimensional flow field. Is it clear? Okay. So now these flow fields are given to you and you are asked to check that each flow field, whether it is following the continuity equation or not, or whether they are continuous or not. तो हमें तीन फ्लो फील्ड दिए गए हैं और हमने बताना है कि ये तीनों जो फ्लो फील्ड हैं इनमें से कौन से कॉन्टिन्यूस कॉन्टिन्यूटी को फॉलो कर रहे हैं, कौन सा फ्लो फील्ड फॉलो कर रहा है, विच फ्लो फील्ड इज फॉलोइंग द कॉन्टिन्यूटी एंड विच वन इज नॉट फॉलोइंग. In other words, whether the flow is continuous or not. So the check we have is the continuity equation. If these flow fields are following the continuity equation, that is because these are two-dimensional, so two-dimensional continuity equation we write partial over partial x plus partial v over partial y is equal to 0. So this is the two-dimensional continuity equation that we have to use to check the continuity of the following flow fields. So first of all, this is the first flow field A, u is minus 2y and v is 3x. So I will advise you to do it yourself right now so that you can have the practice and you should understand how to check the continuity of the flow field. So what to do? You are given with the u, velocity component, u and v. So this is the equation that we have to follow. So it means we have to find partial u over partial x, and you have to find partial v over partial y, and then you have to sum both and to see whether they are coming equal to 0 or not. Now let us find partial u over partial x. What is u? Minus 2y. So partial of minus 2y over partial x, so it is 0. So can anybody tell why it is 0?
सर हम विद रिस्पेक्ट टू x देख रहे हैं.
Yes, so there is no x term involved in this, so that's why its value will be 0. We cannot have this value if we are doing we are taking the partial of with respect to x, so there must be some x term involved to get some value. Anyhow, then what is partial v over partial y? Partial v is 3x, so partial of 3x over partial y is again 0. Again the same reason that there is no y term involved in this, for which we are taking the partial with respect to y. So then applying the continuity equation, partial u over partial x is 0. So 0 plus partial v over partial y is also 0. So 0 plus 0 is 0. So it shows that this flow field is following the continuity equation. It means the flow is continuous, or continuity of this flow field is satisfied. So this is how we can check the continuity of the flow fields using the continuity equation. Now for part B, again the same procedure. U is 0 and v is 3xy. So partial u over partial x, partial of 0 over partial x is 0. V is 3xy. So partial v over partial y. So partial of 3xy over partial y is 3x. So I hope you know this, how to do this partial, take the partial derivative. So partial of 3xy, so 3x will be just taken as constant and will be out of this bracket, and it will be only partial y over partial y, that is 1. So that's why it is 3x. So again, if we put the values in continuity equation, we know in two-dimensional form, continuity equation is partial u over partial x plus partial v over partial y must be 0. So putting the values, partial u over partial x is 0 and partial v over partial y is 3x. So 0 plus 3x is not 0 obviously. So it means that the second flow field is not continuous, it is not satisfying the continuity equation. Now third flow field which was given to you, that is u is 2x and v is minus 2y. So again partial u over partial x, u is 2x, so partial of 2x over partial x is 2. Again 2 will be is a constant, will be taken out of the bracket and it will be partial x over partial x, so it is 1. So the answer will be 2. Then partial v over partial y, v is minus 2y. So partial of minus 2y over partial y. So again minus 2 is taken out. So partial y or partial y is 1. So it is minus 2. Again put the values in continuity equation. So partial u or partial x plus partial y v or partial y. So 2 minus 2 is equal to 0. So this is how we can satisfy the check the continuity of the flow field. So this third flow field is also has satisfied the continuity equation. It means the fluid continuous or continuity is satisfied. So this is how we can check the continuity of the different flow fields, whether two-dimensional, three-dimensional flow fields. So in this way you can try at your places with different equations, like for example u is say 2xy and v is say 3x. Similarly, some value of u and v you can take and try at your places, that how we can check this continuity for different flow fields. Okay, so up till now, if anybody having any question relating to equation, continuity equation, or relating to the how to check the continuity of the flow field, so you have the time now to ask the question. Yes. So any query from your side? Anybody having any question from what we have discussed today?
नो सर।
अच्छा, तो इसका मतलब है या तो सबको समझ आ गई है या किसी को समझ नहीं आई है?
ये सर इंशाल्लाह रिवाइज करेंगे, हो जाएगा।
Anyhow, I have already, as I mentioned, given you the slides of this lecture. So उसको भी आप देखें, और ये रिकॉर्डिंग भी जैसे मैंने कहा कि अब आपको बाद में अवेलेबल हो जाएगी, तो उसको भी आपने गो थ्रू करना है. और इफ़ यू विल फील एनी डिफ़िकल्टी, एनी क्वेश्चन, सो यू विल बी गिवन टाइम to ask questions, and hopefully the answer will be given accordingly. Okay, so next we have rotational and irrotational flow. So let me discuss it briefly, and as far as derivation is concerned, so we'll take it up next time, because already 2 sections, their lectures have been missed because of examination yesterday. So you will be ahead of those, so that's why I will be limiting myself in the first lecture, and in the coming week we'll be trying to complete this lecture, hopefully this topic, hopefully as scheduled to complete in 2 weeks. Anyhow, so irrotational and rotational flow. So first of all, what is irrotational flow? So it is a type of flow in which each element of the fluid, like the element we have considered over here, for example, a similar element, if you take a two-dimensional element, if you consider, so each element of the fluid suffers no net rotation from one instant of time to next instant of time. Yeah, from one instant to next instant with respect to a given frame of reference. Its classical example is this flow is Ferris wheel. So in Ferris wheel, if you search on internet also, so you'll see that it has it rotates about an axis, and it has the different you can say chairs which are attached to it, and those chairs they move to and fro, but their net rotation remains 0. So that is one example of irrotational flow. Similar is the case of the fluid, that if in such a flow where the fluid elements, they do rotate about an axis to and fro, but their net rotation is 0, and this is their net deformation is 0. So in irrotational flow, a fluid element may deform where the axes of the element move equally toward or away from each other. So this is what I'm explaining, that there is momentarily rotation of the fluid element, but it comes back to its original position, and there is to and fro movement, but net rotation remains 0. As long as the algebraic average rotation is 0, the motion is irrotational. On the other hand, for rotational flow, where there is net rotation, but the deformation of the fluid element is less as compared to irrotational flow. So that is called as the rotational flow, in which the fluid element, it permanently has rotation, net rotation or deformation, and the net rotation is not 0. So this is the typical example shown for the irrotational flow and for the rotational flow. So if you see, in case of irrotational flow, this is the element of the fluid energy at any time t, and this is at any time t plus delta t, at next instant or moment, you can say. So this element has its slight rotation has taken place, but the next moment it will again move to the other direction. So alpha and beta angle, they remain the same. So the displacement of the axis towards or away from each other, they are equal. Whether the axis they move towards each other or they move away from each other, the angle remains the same, and the net rotation remains the same, 0. And on the other hand, if you have the rotational flow, initially at time t, the fluid element is present, and at any time delta t, t plus delta t, it has slightly moved. So its direction has been changed, and direction of the axis has been changed. So this is called as the rotational flow. So in the next lecture, although I had to cover this in today's lecture, because I mentioned that some of the sections they missed their or the lecture was missed. So just to try to have all sections at you can say one level. So I will continue from this point next time, and we'll complete this lecture first, and then we'll start with our second lecture of this topic, and hopefully by next week we'll complete that. So up till now, if anybody having again any question, should ask before I wind up this and end the meeting. Yes, any question from your side? So you should go through these slides, and also I will try that you get this recording as early as possible, so that you can go through this recording as well. And when you come to the next week's class, so you should be clear what we discuss in this lecture, and we'll have, if you have any queries, questions, that you will be able to ask. Okay, so if you don't have any question for today's lecture, so I will come to now move to the attendance. So let me end this recording over here.